Okay. Y'all just touch yourself on your chest, close your eyes, and let's just kind of get our hearts opened up and our mind open. Father, we just want to give you honor, thanks, and praise. We gather together, Father, and we look to you. We thank you that you open the eyes of our understanding, dig deep within our ears, help us to hear things we haven't heard before, see things we haven't seen, Father. And we give you honor, we give you praise that you change us, you mold us, you shape us, you heal us, Father. We give you honor for it, and we give you thanks for it. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, if red light's on.
Red light's on.
If you have a Bible, I mean, there's plenty of them stacked up on the back if you'd like to get one and look at it if you don't have one. 1 Corinthians, if you would turn to chapter 2. And I want to read you something actually. I was looking for it over there a few minutes ago. I thought I had left it and misplaced it. And actually it was something that your daddy sent me this week. And I thought it was, I don't know if when David come to church here, it was probably 91 or 92. How long ago has that been? That's been a while ago, hasn't it?
30 years.
It's been a week or two ago for sure. Anyway, David was just out of he was playing in a rock band. Played with a rock band. And his hair was, longer than Jeff's. Went way down his back. He had a beautiful head of hair. And he came, and he was welcome. Nobody said anything about his hair. And so then he come the next week. I guess he come for a month in a row. And nobody ever said anything about his hair. And nobody ever told him or said anything about anybody going to hell. And so he said he'd never heard that before. And he'd never heard anybody preach or teach the way that I did. And so anyway, he become like a lost son of mine that had come home. So I've known your dad that long. So he sent me this, and I don't know if he wrote this or if he got this from somebody. Sounds like something maybe he could have wrote. And I changed a few of the words up on it, is all I did. But I want you to listen to this and hear it. It goes along with a lot of the things that I would teach and what I would say. I am both a natural and spiritual being, with the attributes and the qualities of both. Because I am a spiritual being, I am able to perceive beyond boundaries of time and space. My spirit/consciousness is ever present with all that is, and with all that ever was, and with all that ever will be. It is my nature as a human to be able to perceive and thus to know all there is to know. Everywhere, at all times, I seek to learn and thus grow and evolve. To further my own personal growth and to assist others in their growth, I direct my attention to a chosen point of existence. I observe what is there, I study it carefully, and I record what I find. And like I said, I did change up a few words in it with my thinking of how I would say what that said, but I thought that was very profound and deals with both the things that, if you listen from last Sunday, I talked about here in 1 Corinthians about pneumatikos, which is the Greek word for spiritual, with its root pneuma. And I always use this example because I've been an auto mechanic and tire shop owner for 40 plus years and worked on cars for 50 or 60 years my whole life. And they use pneumatic tools. Pneumatic tools are wind-driven tools. And if you listen to that very clearly, you'll realize that's who you are. You're a wind-driven tool. And the wind is the Spirit. And it's the Spirit that lifes you, and it is the Spirit that lives you. And He doesn't life you and live you because you follow certain beliefs that Christianity or any other religion dictated that you follow. The Spirit is ever present and you can't get rid of it. And when it leaves you, then we'll come to visit you at the funeral. Otherwise, it's forever there. And the Spirit, of course, is God. So God is an ever-present help, period. And religion has made such a devastation of that one term by trying to make it into an old man, which it is not. It's that which is ever present in every place, everywhere, all the time. So the Greek word pneumatikos is translated in the King James translation for the word spiritual. And then the word sarkikos is translated in the King James translation. Sarkikos is the Greek word, means flesh or meat. You ever heard of somebody being called meat-headed? Yeah, okay, that's usually a derogatory term. Meat-headed just simply means that they are controlled by their sensual apparatus. And if you really look at that clearly, you'll find out that's probably all of us. Because that's what generally drives us, especially how we feel. Hello? I just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Then change how you feel and you'll like it.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. So, anyway, 1 Corinthians chapter 2, if you've got that opening and you want to follow me, I want to share some things that I believe will resonate with you. Okay, I know that some things I say are different for our ear to hear it, and words, if they're not correctly defined, then many times a word will take on a different meaning than what the speaker that's using the word will mean. And I find that true all the time with myself when I'm saying things, and I say things and sometimes that they are not heard the way I mean for them to be heard what I meant to say, because again, how we think about words or how we define words. So if you found 1 Corinthians, if you would, as a matter of fact, we're going to go to several places. If you want to put your finger in the index, it would probably be easy, because I'll go back and forth to the Old Testament somewhat. And 1 Corinthians chapter 2. We speak verse 7. Verse 7. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7. We speak the wisdom of God in a mystery. The word mystery in the Greek. Now, if I said mystery, what do you think? Somebody give me a feedback.
Something hid.
Huh?
Something hid.
Something hid. Anybody else? Mystery?
Something unknown.
Something unknown. Okay. The Greek word mysterion actually is what this word is, mystery. And the word means things that are revealed, or in other words, they're not known, so they're revealed to you only through initiation. That only through initiation is part we never hear. But that was a very vital and important part of what, I guess if I were to call it the early church movement, or the Essene movement that started 360 years BC, You know what I mean when I say BC? That's before, some people say BC before Christ, actually it means before the common era. So they understood, the Essenes understood Christ more than we do. It was never a person. So if I say Christ, and the mystery of Christ, if I talk about the mystery of Christ, you think I'm talking about the mystery of a person. The word Christ comes from the Greek word Christos. It actually means oil. It's not a pronoun, a noun. It's not a person's name. That's difficult. Most people, oh, Brother Lynn, it has to be somebody's. It's not. It's not the person's name. Every one of you are Christed. Every one of you. In other words, every one of you have an oil, an unction. And here's another word that you can associate with Christos, anointing. The word anointing is not something that a preacher does because he gets excited and dances. Moves around real quick or something like that. Or starts speaking in tongues and prophesying or whatever. That's not anointing. That's just emotional excitement. It can be really entertaining. And a lot of fun. Not throwing any stone against it at all. I'm not. I'm prone to be that or do that myself because I enjoy it. You know why? Feels good. What's wrong with feeling good? I think feeling good's good.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. I enjoy feeling good. So, you know, if you get unctioned and you go to dancing, I might dance with you. That's the only way I can be able to dance because I got 2 left feet. So if I use this word Christ, I'm not talking about a person. When I read the word Christ in the Bible, I'm not reading about a person. Especially if I'm reading under the Pauline epistles, because Paul talks about Christ more than anything or anybody, and he's not talking about a person. You see, the one thing about the Pauline epistles that is a confusion to theologians and scholars alike, and that is that Paul is supposedly contemporary with the character Jesus. And yet Paul never, ever, one time mentions anything about Jesus. Never mentions a miracle. Never mentions him walking on water. Never mentions him healing anybody. Never mentions him doing anything profound, ever. And yet grew up in the same city, contemporary with him, same age, and didn't know him. Now, I think that's strange. I really think that's. But so do a lot of theologians. And they don't know what to do with it and about it, because you won't read anything out of Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Colossians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians. You won't read anything in any of these books about anything that Jesus did. I think that's strange. But I'm not the only person that does. But Paul talks about the mysteries of God. He talks about master builders. Those are all terms that come out of ancient Hebrew. They come out of Kabbalah. They come out of Masonry. They come out of Egyptology. And most people would recognize, I've been to Egypt and I've been all in and out of the Great Pyramid of Giza, climbed up to the top, laid in the king's chamber, laid in the tomb, in the it's called his initiation chamber is what it is. It's not a tomb that they buried somebody in. That's what religion tries to convince you and me of. It's not. It's an initiation chamber that when you go in that chamber and they throw the lid on it and you stay there for 3 days, you come out of it a changed person. And that's what it's for. It's a chamber of energy. And I've laid in that. I have a picture of me laying in that chamber. When I climbed up into the top, the group, wasn't a group, just a few of us that were there, they gave us special privileges because I wasn't with a tour group. I had a private guide that took me, and his father, my private guide's father, guide's name was Joseph, and his father was the oldest Egyptian tour guide. He helped start the Egyptian tourist guide back in 1950, early 50s. And when he died, he was what they called the ancient keeper of the oral traditions of the Egyptians. In other words, these were traditions that weren't written at all. You had to go through initiation and go through an oral ceremony to be a part of that kind of wisdom. And those were the kind of wisdom schools that most all of this stuff that we have compiled in this book that we call the Bible comes out of. It comes out of those schools that were, most of them were orally taught. In other words, they didn't write it down, they orally, and then you begin to take that initiation and you did with it according to your gifts, your talents, your abilities. You didn't do anything with it according to me, because they understood that everybody's individual and therefore you're unique in yourself. We're not cookie cutters. We want to try to do that, and that's why they started a belief system. So now, what if you don't believe the way I believe? Does that mean we can't fellowship? Does that mean that we're not one? Does that mean that the same God is your God and my God? See? All this division stuff comes through Christianity. It comes through the teachings of beliefs, because they try to make you believe what I believe, or I try to make you believe what they told me to believe. When you're an individual, when God created you unique and special and designed you the way you are, and the only one that can change that design, the only one that can critique that design, the only one that can do anything with that design is you. Period. So, and you only can do that by looking in the mirror of yourself. And if you don't do that, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can live your life without doing that, but it's only looking in the mirror of yourself where you begin to see you for who you are. You see your attributes. You see your qualities. You see the things that disqualify you. You see them. Other people don't. You keep them hid. Right? I keep mine hid from you best I can. Sometimes they get out of turn. If I get a little too much to drink, I might get over into some of my disqualities, some of the things. I get a little loose, like a goose or something like that. Hello? You still with me? So, we speak the wisdom of God in a mysterio. Now I want to read you some notes that I wrote. And these mysteries, one of the greatest mysteries that exist, that Christianity is built on, but not just Christianity is built on. Egyptian mythology is built on this same myth. It's the same myth. It's told in all cultures, in all countries, all over the world. It's the same story, but it uses different names for the characters in the story. And the story usually portrays a character that's called a God-man. Can everybody say that? Say God-man.
God-man.
The reason they do that is because every one of you are a God-man or a God-being. Every one of you. So that you are both divine and you're human. That's why you're unique. Right? And so if you don't have this book, I recommend everybody to buy this book and memorize it. If you could, Jesus Mysteries. This is one of a trilogy. There's 3 of these books. But this is the first one, and I would highly recommend you. This was written about 1998 or 99. And I want to read a few things it says in this book about this character, God-man. So, central to all of the forms of the mysteries, however, was the myth of a dying and resurrecting God-man. So it didn't matter whether you lived in Greece or you lived in Rome or you lived in India or you lived in Africa or you lived in Japan. It didn't matter where you lived. There was a myth. A myth is simply a fabulous story. We have in our modern Christians era, we have taken the word myth and made it sound like it means a lie. It's anything but a lie. A myth is the truth, but it's always told in story form. And it will use a character in the story that sounds as though the character was a literal living being. And in all of these characters that are told about in these stories, that it sounds like they are a literal living being doing these things. Every one of them dies and resurrects. Every one of them. Including you. So, central to these forms of the mysteries, however, was a myth of a dying and a resurrecting God-man. The Greek mystery celebrated the Eleusis in honor of the great mother goddess, and the God-man Dionysus were the most fabulous of all the mystery cults. And actually he goes on and documents everything that he says in this book, so it's highly documented, so anybody that reads it can fact check it. It don't matter. It gives you plenty of backup so you can see that this is not conspiracy theory. This is the real deal. And so these mystery schools of the dying and the resurrecting God-man, they had different names, but they also did plays. They actually did dramas. People would go to the theater and watch these dramas being played out. How many of y'all have ever gone to the theater and get emotionally moved or touched watching the movie? Yeah. Why? Because you were acting out the drama yourself. Or something about that drama was touching you in a very deep emotional place, right? I remember when The Passion come out. And Connie and I went to see that movie. Did any of y'all see that movie? I would never take anybody to see it again. I mean, and while we were there in the movie, people were screaming out, literally screaming out, "Oh God, help me!" Because the movie, there was not a word of English in it. Not one word. Nearly a 2-hour movie, not one word of English. Every bit of it was Latin. And yet it probably sold more millions than any movie ever produced. But the story of it is not a brand new story, and it wasn't new to the era which it was being told. It was an old story. And it was acted out in many of the arenas that were built back in those days, whether they were in Rome. I mean, you know, part of the I forget the name of that dome in Rome that's still standing, where people would gather by the tens of thousands to watch the drama plays. And people was thinking they was going there watching them turn loose lions on radical people. So that was their meaning. And so everybody was there just gory watching the lions eat the people up. No, that's drama from Hollywood. That's what that is. They were there to watch these plays just exactly like we go to the movie theater and see these fabulous movies. So all of these are some notes that I wrote. I'll just read my notes to you. This is the theme of all of the mythical, allegorical, or literal historical materials. It is a story of our lives, and the majority of us don't know it. So even though you're looking at a mystery or a story or a myth, a fabulous story, it's about your life. It's the picture of you. It's like I say this, and I'm not sure that I can say it enough because I know people really don't get it. The Bible makes it very clear that you are the building of God. Do you not know, I'll just quote you a passage of Scripture in Corinthians, do you not know that you are the temple of God? I'm just quoting that. Do you not know that? No, we don't know that. We acknowledge that. No, we don't know that. I mean, do you know living you is God? Do you know that? No, we don't know that. We just acknowledge that. We don't live like we know that that's a fact, that's true. It is. It is a fact and it is true. And that's what all of these old mysteries were all about. Was how God is living its temple, which is you. And so here's what I always say. The Bible is a book about the temple that God built so God could live in that temple and experience what God created. That's what the Bible is about. So if I go to the book of Genesis, if I go to the book of Joshua, if I go to the book of Ezekiel, that is a story. Something about that story is the story of my life and God living my life through me to experience the world through me. And how many of you realize that God experiences through me different than He experiences through you, and experiences through you different than He experiences through me? And if I try to make my experience the experience per excellence and say, if you're not having mine, you're not having one. That's what they call BS. Because God made you individually and God made you unique to be you. But we're not catching up to that. I know we're being stirred to start to think that, because if we ever start to think it and then catch up with it, it will begin to initiate us and mobilize us in a way we've never been mobilized. Now we teeter-tottered around it. There have been many movements and many exciting things happen where people begin to get stirred and get around some certain truths. But boy, we hadn't really just dove into it and just walk it out. But thank God we're getting there. It's happening all around us. So I want to read this. These are some of the characters. I have one book that lists 16 different characters, their names, and the nations that they were from, and a part of their story. 16 different God-man characters. So the deity who was known as Osiris in Egypt, see, if you go to Egypt, to the pyramids, you'll see a lot about Osiris. Osiris was the son of Horus and Isis. And their son, Osiris, was a dying and resurrecting God-man. And Horus and Isis, and the pictures that you see of what you would call baby Jesus and Mother Mary, aren't baby Jesus and Mother Mary. They're generally Horus and Isis. And all the ancient pictures, and this book right here will actually give you, let's see, right there is a really good one of it. Can y'all see that? I mean, this is on the wall of temples. Can y'all see that? That's not Mary and Jesus. That's what the Christian church tried to tell you. That's what they told you. But it's not. Let's see if he's got any. Let's see if he's got any more of these. Here's another one, and this one is a Roman rendition, but it's so small you can't see it. But there she is, Isis, with Horus on her lap. That's not Mary and Jesus. But they tried to sell us that it was. Anyway, that goes on and on and on. So let me read this on a little bit further, too far off my... So the deity Osiris in Egypt became Dionysus in Greece, and was called Attis in Asia Minor. He was called Adonis in Syria. He was called Bacchus in Italy. He was called Mithras in Persia. And so on and so on and so on. And in Jerusalem, he was called Eusus. Did you hear what I said? Eusus. There was never a name Jesus until about 600 or 700 years ago. That name didn't exist. But now the Latin name, Eusus, did. And so that come out of Rome, out of the Latin stories. So all of the cultures told these phenomenal stories. So I wrote this down out of my meditation, saying, why this phrase, God-man? If you study ancient astrology, and if I put the astrological wheel up here, and I started out with the Aries and went all the way around to Libra. The picture that I would draw from those signs in the astrological wheel would be the physical anatomy of your body. And that's why it's called the God-man, and many of them would say the God-man in the sky, because it's imprinted in the astrological wheel. Because when you look at Aries, Aries is about the head. It's what Aries is about. It's called the ram or the lamb, but it's referring to the top, the head. That's just where the ram's horn is referring to the two divisions of the brain, the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And then when you go from that to Taurus, Taurus is the sign of the bull, is always referring to your neck, your lower, the back of your head, the lower, and your shoulders. In other words, it's like when you get stubborn and you say, bless God, I'll do it myself. I know y'all never do that, do you? But that's Taurus. That's what that is about. And then when you go from Taurus to Gemini, the twins, the two twins, there they are, right and left. They're not fighting each other, thank God. You know, like right and left. My right leg don't fight my left leg. If my body wasn't in harmony and it didn't flow in harmony, my left leg and my right leg would be in a fight and fuss, which one's going to go first. And I'd be doing my kids trying to go somewhere. Because when they're fussing over which one's going to go, left or right. Hello? That's how we get. Which one of the, am I going to pick up a fork with my right hand or my left hand? I got both of them grabbing for the plate. I'm in a mess. But I'm in harmony because this is the God-man. I'm telling you, this is the God-man. It's been printed all the time. It's always before us. It's forever speaking to us. We just don't know how to hear it. And so when you come to Gemini, you've got the twins, which are your hands, your legs. You go from there to Cancer, which are your lungs. You go from Cancer to Leo, which is your heart. Go from Leo to Virgo, which is your abdomen. And you go from Virgo to Libra, which is your pelvic, your place of balance. You have two places of balance that have to be in harmony. That's your pelvic, where your sex organ is at. That's where we get in our greatest chaos. Or you have your left and right hemispheres of your brain, your masculine and feminine. That's where the other part of the greatest chaos is at. So if you got chaos up here struggling between your left brain and your right brain, between your carnal mind and your divine mind, or you're struggling down here in the place of balance in your pelvic between your left bladder and your right bladder, or whatever, if you're struggling in those two places and you don't have balance, you can't walk the way God designed you to walk. Thus, that's where our dilemmas are at. That's where our struggles is. We don't grasp the God-man. And so I wrote this. Why that phrase, God-man? It was a popular phrase in all mythologies, and I just list them, some of them, in that Jesus Mysteries book. Yet was given different names, and the stories altered a little bit. Because with one name they may put more emphasis on this aspect of your being, and on another on different aspects. So they changed the names. It was always about a dying and resurrecting God-man. And that's key, dying and resurrecting God-man. Yet you and I do not understand, because religion didn't teach you, didn't tell us, that many of these words are what's called code words. Do you know what I mean when I say code words? It's just like now you can buy a lock for your door that's coded, and then you punch the code in and your door unlocks. And you can go into your house. Well, see, that's what many words are in Scripture. They're code words. And if you do not know the code to unlock that word, you will not be able to go in and experience what's there for you. Can't do it. And dying is one of those words. Dying is a code word. We look at dying as cessation of being. dying has nothing to do with cessation of being. Dying has more to do with being. What I mean when I say that, I'll use a parable that Jesus used. Mark chapter 4. Except a grain of corn fall into the ground and die. Now, does that grain of corn go in the ground and stops being? Does it rot? Does it decay? What does it do? It stops the outer shell. Listen to this. The husk, the outer shell, the physical hard heart, it begins to soften and tender. Why? It's in the dark, moist soil, in that dark place. Have you ever been there? It's not hard to get there. We all get there. We all experience it over and over and over and over and over. Our problems are we're not paying attention to what's happening there in that dark place where we're being broken. Isn't that what happens to the outer shell of that seed? It's broken. You know, it's just exactly like the hen that lays the egg. She has to get that hard shell just exactly the right hardness before she pushes that egg out so that that chick can either break through it or die in it. If the shell's too hard, the chick can't break through. Won't make it. And I remember when I was a little boy, I grew up on a farm. Grandpa would just, because we used to see them little chickens breaking through when we was little. And bless God, I wanted to get me something and pull that back. I want to help it out. Oh, Grandpa would. He would give you a good hickory switch. Don't you mess with that because you killed the chick. I said, I'm just trying to help it out. Have you ever tried to help somebody and you shouldn't have never touched it? Hello? Why? Because you have to walk through your own stuff. If you don't walk through your own stuff, you're never going to learn what the stuff is about. Now sure, God does give us help. And God does give us aid and assistance in many of the situations and circumstances that we're in. Because many times if you're stuck in the ditch, you do need a four-wheel drive Ford truck to pull you out. You know, pray that somebody don't come along in a GMC or a Chevrolet and you won't get stuck. You follow the analogy there? So, it was always about a dying and resurrection. Dying is a code word that simply means that you are beginning to be what God built you to be. Do you realize that's an entire life process? You know, I am older than I'm supposed to be. And I'm just beginning to see how I'm supposed to be what I've always been designed to be. And so I thank God that I've got the next 50, 60, 70 more years to be what I've been designed to be all my life. And guess what? I haven't wasted all these past years. Why? They were tremendous experiences. There were things I couldn't learn unless I walked through it. You don't know what it's like until you fall in the ditch yourself.
Wow.
Now, do you have to fall in a ditch to learn? No. Most do, though. I do. Yeah. So, listen. Because the Spirit, listen. About the dying and the resurrecting God-man. And then I wrote a big why. Why a dying and resurrecting God-man? Because, listen to this. Because the Spirit, without a body, cannot experience the senses. Spirit don't have senses. The Spirit's wind. It has no sensual apparatus whatsoever. The sensual apparatus belongs to the human body. You hear what I'm saying? That belongs to you. That's what makes you unique, is your sensual apparatus. And that's why God moved into you, because God wants the experience of what it created, which is you. And so the Spirit, without the body, does not have an ability to experience its sensual apparatus because it doesn't have one.
No.
Doesn't have one. The only way you can have a sensual apparatus, you have to be caught in time. You can't have sensual apparatus outside of time. Because you don't. But you know what? They painted us this childhood story about how wonderful and glorious it's going to be when you get to heaven. And so then they painted this picture of this place out yonder that's a glorious place to go to, and in that glorious place to go to, they got all the foods you ever want to eat, just all on a great big table, all kinds of it. You know, I'm sure they've got chicken and dumplings, fried chicken, pork chops. I know they got to have pork chops because, well, they just got to have barbecued ribs. You know, they got to have all that stuff. It's all on this big table. You're just going to go sit and eat and just get, I guess you're just going to get, all of us just get bigger and bigger and be like little baby angels floating on a cloud, flopping their wings. I tell you, this is the picture they painted for you.
It is.
And that place don't exist.
No.
The word heaven actually, shamayim in Hebrew, shin mem yod mem, shamayim, actually the word means the waters above and the waters below. It's talking about your upper nature that's divine and spiritual, and your lower nature that's human and sensual. Both of them are tremendous. One's not more tremendous than the other. The spirit without the sensual apparatus is nothing. It's got to have that. So, why a dying and resurrected God-man? Why? Because the spirit without a body cannot experience the senses. The soul, mind, without a body cannot think. It don't. What does a mind do? What is the main function of the mind? You know what the main function of a mind is? A mind thinks. Yours thinks, mine thinks, everybody thinks. We're just thinking. Stinking thinking, always thinking. A soul longs for a body. So you have a spirit and soul, which you are introduced to in Genesis 1 and chapter 2, that both of them are looking for this body, i.e. temple, this tabernacle, this house, this dwelling place God built so God could live in it. Then why in the world would we not understand that the books that God wrote are about this house, this temple, this body that God built and how it functions? So the stories that are all intertwined in these books are stories about the intricacy of the workings of this temple tabernacle house. It's phenomenal. You are phenomenal, period. So the soul, the mind without a body cannot think a thought. The body's senses become the most important feature of creation, and the human / Adam, that's the same word. Adam is not the name of a first man. Adam is the name of humanity. Alif Dalit Mem. That's how it's spelled in Hebrew. Alif Dalit Mem. It is called Adam. Alif, that's God. Dom is blood, human. God, man. That's what that word is. Adam. God, man. Most important, the body, the sense, become the most important feature of creation, and the human / Adam, not an individual person, but the whole human race. At the core of all of the mystery myth schools was the fabulous story of the dying and resurrecting God, man or woman. These stories were a divine drama, and they were. You can do enough research, and you can see what I'm telling you, that these stories were about this divine drama, this mystery, this God-man. And in this drama is to excite your emotions and your feelings. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because if you get touched in those areas, you get motivated in those areas. The word experience. How many of you have had experiences? Mm-hmm. How many have had lots of experiences? You have them every day. The Hebrew word for the word experience is the word nachesh. Y'all know how to kind of clear the top of your throat. Can y'all do that? Some of you can do it, some of you can't do it. You have to practice to learn to do it. You have to learn to do that. How to roll your R's. to speak Hebrew. Nachesh. Nachesh means learn by experience. It's the first, in the first verse of Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. And it's like this. It says, now the Nachesh, your ability to learn by experience. You know what they translated that word for? Serpent. And now you think it's talking about a snake. It ain't talking about a snake. It's talking about your ability to experience. To experience what? God. To experience what God has for you. To experience God in you, God through you. Man, that's phenomenal. And that does excite your emotions. And that does give power to your feelings. And if you get your emotions and you get your feelings motivated in the right direction, you're going to be a powerful person. You're going to be a powerhouse. That's going to give you the ability to learn to play the guitar like your daddy. I mean, it'll drive you. It will drive you. It's designed to be that way. Yet you can get hooked on something that's not designed necessarily to serve you, and it'll drive you too, because it's taking and it's using your emotions and your feelings. And that happens to us all the time. So, and that's not right or wrong. It just happens. Goodness. Okay, I wanted to get a lot further than I'm going here. I'm slow here this morning. I'm saying too much off my track here. So are you with me here in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7 says, now we speak the mystery of God, the wisdom of God, the wisdom of God. The wisdom is Sophia. There's a phrase that goes all the way back into ancient mythology that's called Theosophy. Theosophy. And so Madame Blavatsky rebirthed the Theosophical Society in around 1874 or 5 with some of her writings, and created a phenomenal wave that's still taking place. And it's the reawakening of Theosophy, which Theo is the word for God, Sophie is the word for wisdom. Theosophy means God's wisdom. There's wisdom from above that's pure and peaceable, and then there's the wisdom that's not from above, it's natural, and it's chaotic. And you can experience, that's James chapter 3 if you want to go study and research on that. So this mystery, notice this hidden, which God ordained before the world, actually it's the Greek word aeon, which means ages, unto our glory. For none of the princes of this world knew, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither has entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love Him. Did you hear that? The things. What things has God prepared for you? Because there are many things God has prepared for you. Hello? And it's up to you to find those things. It's up to you to experience those things. It's up to you to walk in those things. And oh my goodness, as we start to do that, you talk about enhancing my life. You talking about making my life glorious. It will. it will move you into a place that will be wonderful. Verse 9, as it is written, and here he's quoting from Isaiah, as it is written, eye has not seen, ear has not heard, neither did enter the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love Him. But God has revealed or uncovered or is showing these things. This is a part of what I'm doing up here when I'm trying to talk and I'm wanting to put things on the board to show you the pictures of these Hebrew glyphs and how these words work. Then you begin to see it and you say, oh man, okay, I see that. But God who hath uncovered these, verse 10, unto us by Spirit, for the Spirit searches all things, yea, even the deep things of God. For what man knows the things of God, save the Spirit of God which is in him? Even so the things of God knows no man but the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of God, that we might know the things that are freely given to us, You see that freely? It doesn't cost you anything. You know why? It costs you everything. Doesn't cost you anything. Why? It costs you everything. Because you give your whole self, your whole being. And what you get back is you get all of God. Everything God's got to pour through you and pour upon you. So, we receive not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of God, that we might know the things which are freely given to us of God. Which things also we speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teaches, but which the Holy Spirit teaches, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. But the natural man, that's the sarkikos. The spiritual man is the pneumatikos. But the natural man receives not the things of the Spirit of God. They're foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they're spiritually discerned. All right, come down with me to chapter 3 to verse 9. Come down with me to verse 9. For we labor together with God, for you are God's husbandry, using the King James translation of the Bible, husbandry. And when I'm using that particular term, husbandry, the word means, I think some translations might say field. Does any of your translations say field? Garden? Okay. Yeah, they use different words in different translations for that word. The word husbandry is a very old word, which actually means the field that you're working. And the reason that is the case is because you're working your field. Ain't nobody working your field. You working your own field. That's right. Amen. Who labors together with God. You are God's husbandry and God's building. You're God's what?
Building.
You're God's building. God owns you. God built you. God's building you. God ain't through working on you. He's still working on me to make me what I ought to be, or something like that. You're still God's building. According to the grace which is given unto me, as a wise master builder, I've laid a foundation, and another is built thereon, but let every man take heed how he builds thereon. For other foundations can no man lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, I got all that, and I've said everything I've said to get to that phrase right there, Jesus Christ. Jesus is a word that was not even in the English language until sometime around about the time of the printing press, when 1439 to 1467 is when Gutenberg invented the printing press. Prior to that, there was no way of printing books like we know. The only way books were written were scribed. They were handwritten. They were written out. Or if they were using clay tablets, they were carved out in the clay tablet. Or if they were using tin, they were hammered out. The glyphs, the letters. And so each one, you might have 10 books of the book of John, and none of the 10 books would say the same thing, because you had a different scribe writing each book. You say, oh, you mean to tell me that they couldn't all get it correct? No, they got it. They did it the way they would do it. If y'all ever done that test where you get a circle, get about 10, 15, 20 people in the circle, speak something to this and say, tell it next. And they tell it, and it goes all the way around the circle, 10 people, and come back, and you say, now what did I say? It ain't even close to what you said. That's true. That's true. Why? Because people hear words different, and then they say it different. And so you go around. So if you sit there thinking, well, God had them by the hand writing it like that, so that it was all right. No. Didn't happen that way. So until the printing press, there were lot of different words and a lot of different names, but this name that we have right here, I think I have it spelled somewhere. I wanted to look and see if I could find it right here. And it's spelled this way, and I want to... Jesus, the name Jesus didn't exist until somewhere around 600 years ago, 600 or 700 years ago. And then English took a word, and here was the word. It was actually a Latin word, and this Latin word was spelled two different ways. It was spelled like this. S-U-S. I-E-S-U-S. Eus. E-S-us. E-S-us. That was the Latin for it. It was also spelled another way. It was spelled this way in Greek. Now this is the word for Jesus. It was spelled this way. I-E-S-O-U-S. It was spelled that way in Greek. It's spelled that way in Latin. Where did that word come from? Is that word an Latin word? Where did it come from? What did the word mean? Did some person, man and woman, name a child that name? No. That was a mythical character. That was the character's name. That was the name given to the character. And that name actually comes from a Hebrew root. And the Hebrew root, see if I can put this up here. The Hebrew root was this word. I'm going to do it on this side because Hebrew goes from right to left. It's backwards. That's the Yod, the Shin, the Wav, and the Ayin. And so this Hebrew word was, this was called J-O-S-H-U-A, Joshua. Yoshua. Yoshua. You ever heard of that? Yoshua? Mm-hmm. Where did that come from? Joshua. What was the story? Who was Joshua? What was the story around Joshua? What does Joshua's name mean? This is an ancient Hebrew story. Matter of fact, if you will, go ahead and turn in your Bible to the book of Deuteronomy, the last chapter in the book of Deuteronomy, I think it's. What does his name mean? Does anybody know? Salvation. Now, did they preach salvation in the Old Testament? Of course. Why did they do that? Why did they preach salvation? Is it because man needed to be saved from something? No, it's because our understanding of that word salvation and what it really meant back then is lost, because our understanding has been tampered with by the translation. So if you find Deuteronomy real quick, that's the last of the books of Moses, chapter 34. And so the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis through Deuteronomy, the first 5 books of the Bible, most people say that they were written by Moses, or they were written by somebody else and used the name Moses as the character's name, right? Y'all follow me on that? The name Moses is spelled this way. Mem, Shin, Hey. And here's what his name means. His name means to be the name Moses, and this is around the stories of Moses, and you'll think with me on this because you'll see it constantly around the stories of Moses. The name Moshe, hey, Moses, it means to be drawn up out of water. That's what his name means, to be drawn up out of water. A better understanding, simply because the sheen always, the sheen in Hebrew is 300, it means breath. Now, how did God create you? God created you, sheen, mem, is the waters above. Yod, final mem, these are waters below. Now, how many of you know you're a water vessel? You're 80, 70, 80, 90% water. Now, what happens if you go into water and you stay under the water? What happens if you stay under the water for an extended period of time? I think the longest person's ever done it is Wim Hof, and I think he stayed under right at 7 minutes. And that's unheard of. That's phenomenal. Wim Hof has stayed under about 7 minutes. Nobody else ever done that. Have you ever tried it? The best I've ever done. I've done some of Wim Hof's breathing exercises, and the best I've got to was 2 minutes and 67 seconds. It's the best I've ever, I haven't got him beyond that. That's a long time. And just hold it and count. Try it and see what happens. What happens to breath if it's left under the water?
You die.
Exactly. You'll drown. So look, God built you as a water vessel, and God lives in you. But the only way God, as spirit, which is the sheen, that's spirit, that's the only way God can live in you as sheen or as breath, is God needs to be able to come up out of the water. That's what the story of Moses is all about. Drawn up out of water. What is it? You remember his mama put him in a little basket? And he went around the bend there, and somebody else took him out of the basket, drew him up out of the water. Why? Because you can't live if the breath is not drawn up out of the water. Yeah. So the story of Moses and around his whole story is how breath is being drawn up out of the water. The things that breath does to get drawn up out of the water. But then when you look at this word right here, actually, waters below and waters above, this is the word heaven. Sheen, mem, that's the word for heaven. Which means that you are a water vessel, upper and lower. And the way you live and the way you survive is how your breath is drawn up out of this. Now look at this story. These stories, the way they fall is phenomenal as you start to see it. When you start to see it, wow. So if you found Deuteronomy chapter 34, look at verse 7. It says, Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. 120. That ain't a bad. I'm going to shoot for that. That's not bad. But look what it says. Now watch this, because it's important. And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 years. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. Verse 9, and Joshua, look here, Joshua, salvation. So what's happening? After the breath is drawn up out of the water, now we're going into the story of Joshua, salvation. What is salvation? Salvation, actually, the word means to make you whole. Why? Because I am a divided being. I'm half spirit, I'm half body. I'm a divided being. Is there a struggle between the two? Absolutely. Absolutely, there is this tension that goes between the two. And what happens? It is your work, not mine. I've got my own. And mine's a chore too. It's your work for you to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Or in other words, you have to work out your own wholeness so that you can be all that God's designed you to be. The younger you start on that path, the further you get down that path as you walk through the life of the journey. I started late, so I'm late. You don't have to be old to experience this marvelous stuff. But look at this. Now, right here, this verse 9. And Joshua, who was what? The son of who?
No.
The son of Nun. What does the word Nun mean? The word Nun means fishes. Where are there fishes? Fishes are in water. Because it's in water where is the most fertile seed of any place that there can be. How many of you have ever seen fish spawning and laying their eggs? Again, I grew up on a farm. We had a little lake, and we watched them bass every year when they would build their nests and spawn. And they would lay thousands. I mean, it's not like a man and a woman getting together and he releases his seed and it's only going to make just one. Man, in water, it's multiplied to the 10,000th power. And guess what? You are a water vessel, and those things that are multiplying, you ever wonder why it seems like an avalanche of stuff? You know what they call that, don't you? Well, I ain't supposed to say it up here behind this thinking place, but I get out here where I can. What's another word I could say instead of the S word? How many of y'all, they made a sign for it, didn't they? You can step all in it. Have y'all ever produced any of it? I mean, we can produce literally thousands and thousands of seeds of that stuff. It stinketh sometimes. It's a mess. You ever got your life into a mess? Well, have no fear. I am here. God is here. I am is God. He's here. And why is He here? He's here to help you.
That's right.
He's here to help me. He's here to help us walk through all of this fishes, seeds that's produced in the water vessel that I am. And how can I do that? I can only do it through Joshua, who is salvation, or in other words, that which will make me whole. Show me how to digest the seeds, or how to let the seeds just go ahead and die and go on. Can I do that? Yeah. Look at that. Look what it says right here. Joshua, the son of Nun, he was filled with the spirit of wisdom. Now, go over to the very next book. You know what the next book is? It's amazing how these things fall together. Look at the next book. What is the next book? Joshua. And what does the name Joshua mean? It means salvation. That's what his name means. Joshua is where that the Latin got their name, Ausis. Ausis. This is where they got that name. They got it from Joshua. Yod Shin Vav Ayin. The yod has to do with the number 10. Number 10 is the yod, the yod. It has to do with your masculine and your feminine characteristics. That's always intention for your greater good, not to tear you up. It's the masculine and feminine of your being, okay? And then the sheen, of course, is the breath, has a 300 value. It takes your spirit, soul, and body, it merges them and unites them together in the breath of your being. The vav is number 6, has to do with your male, your seed. You're able to continue to reproduce whatever you're making in your life. You're reproducing it. You're going to continue to reproduce it. And then you have the ayin, which is a 70, and actually that means it's the eye of God, so that now through you, the eye of God can see exactly what's going on. And that word just happens to be Joshua. That's where your salvation comes. So look at Joshua chapter 1, verse 1. It says, Now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Not really. Now, therefore, arise and go over this Jordan. Jordan, Dan. Dan means judgment. Jor means to prostrate and spread out. Judgment is where you go over to Libra. You remember I talked about your pelvic, where balance is at? Rather than to say judgment like God's going to judge you, it's where justice is worked out through balance. It can't be worked out through condemnation. You can't work justice out by condemning somebody. You never can. That don't work. You can only work justice out by balance. And that's the word Jordan means you have come to this place where you prostrate yourself. You humble yourself. And then God begins to do His work in you. Verse 3. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, and I have given unto you, as I said unto Moses. For the wilderness of this Lebanon, Drop down to verse 7. Only be strong, be very courageous, that you may observe to do all that the law, actually that word law is Torah, which just simply means principles of God. That don't mean thou shalt not, okay? That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about the principles of God. Okay? The principles of God. That you can do according to the principles of God. Moses, my servant, I commanded, turn not from the right or the left, that you may prosper wheresoever you go. This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but you shall meditate therein day and night, over and over and over and over. That's right. Yes, she's repeating it. Over and over and over, meditate therein day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that's written therein, for then you shall make your way, you shall make your way, you shall make your way, you shall make your way. Hello? You going to make your way how? Prosperous. And you going to do what? You're going to have good success. That's God's plan for you. Hallelujah. God plans for you to be successful in your spirit, soul, and body, and to prosper, to grow, to be nourished, to be strong. So these stories, as we understand, we unveil these stories more and more. We begin to see these stories are the picture of my life and how my life is designed to do. I remember I read a book years and years ago by Peck. I can't remember his first name. About tragedies happened on the road, traveling the road, the road less traveled, I think was the name of the book. The road less traveled, yeah. What was his name? Something Peck. Very, very phenomenal book. It just simply says there's bumps in the road. There's ditches in the road. I mean, on each side. And sometimes you get in them, don't you? Yeah. I know I have. Well, that's a part of life. Romans 8 makes that so clear. Can we take a 5-minute break and go out for another hour? Because I need to get over to Romans chapter 8, and then so I can show you exactly why that we suffer. How many of y'all have ever suffered? How many of you ever felt? How many of you have ever had a tragedy come to visit and knock on your door, and you think, "Wow, woe is me! I'm just in the ditch." It happens to all of us, don't it? Yes. Go back to that phrase. Stuff happens. It does. Did God have preparation and plans for that? Yes. And the whole earth is travailing and begging and waiting on us, you and me, to grab hold of this and get it and stand up and be what God made you to be. Don't mean that bad things won't try to come your way. It don't mean that hard times won't visit with you. It don't mean any of those things. It means that just exactly like Jesus said, the rains are going to come. Period. The storms of life are going to come. It depends on how You built your house.
Right.
If you build your house right, hey, you'll endure.
Right.
You'll stand. Amen. Hallelujah. I quit right there.